Listen, I am here to discuss the most important question in this moment in time, which is simply which F1 drivers would survive on the island from Lost. But first, hello, I am Simon, and I have come today because mainly I like to yap. I made a video maybe 2 weeks ago now that was basically which F1 drivers would model nude, and I made it as a tier list, and it was really fun. And then I got one comment that was like, you should talk about F1 drivers more, and I was like, bet, I can absolutely do that, so I'm back. Originally this was gonna be who would survive if they were stranded on an island. I decided to simply base it off of Lost. If you don't know, I loved Lost. I watched it last year. It was fantastic. So I'm using that as the concept. You crash on an island, but survival is doable, right? This isn't you're trapped on an island with no natural resources and the animals are trying to kill you. This is you're trapped on an island, food is pretty available to you, there's fresh water. This is a survivable island, hypothetically. Also, I did flop. In my last F1 video, mainly because they were weirdly young, I didn't do any of the rookies, right? This is my own selection of drivers, we'll call it. And I didn't do the rookies because it was who would model nude, and I wasn't gonna sit here and be like, Kimi Antonelli, 18-year-old, maybe 19, I don't remember how old he is, but teenager, right? Would he pose cock out? I decided that is a bit weird, so I didn't do any of the rookies. I have thrown in the rookies that I have fondness for, which is just Kimi and Ollie, but either way, I do have something to join me in this video. We're gonna move, this is my Geno dog thing. This is my Ollie Bearman bear, and I figured it's a perfect replacement. I have a bunch of little plush, actually. I don't think I've ever talked about that. I do have a bunch of these little plushes and bigger plushes. Maybe one day I'll do a video that's just my entire collection of plush that's scattered throughout my apartment, but that's not this video. This video is about Formula One. Anyway, last thing before I begin is obviously I don't know these men. This is all in my mind palace and my crack theories, right? These are my opinions about who would make it on an island. If I say that your favorite driver would die on the plane, they are not getting off the plane, they're dead on day one, maybe we need to reevaluate the fact that I am correct. Your driver simply is dead on day one. Alrighty, we may now begin, and here's the screen where I'm going to start the way we always start, which is I start at the bottom and go through the tiers. The bottom tiers didn't make it off the plane, right? This is either that or dead on day one, right? You maybe made it to the island and you did not make it far beyond that, right? These are the men that I do not think would do well stranded on an island. For each one, I will give the reasons why I think they would not make it off the plane or would be dead on day one. But these are the ones where it's they are hopeless, right? You could give them all the help in the world and they're not gonna make it through the night. Okay, next is survived a week. These are the ones that I think have a theoretical shot of making it, but realistically they're gonna be a week in and then that's about it, right? We're not going to the end. You're not making it off the island. You're not really making it on the island. Next is maybe with some help. These are the ones that I do think have in their core the survival instinct to do it. They maybe just need a little bit of extra help with food, shelter, that kind of thing. But the survival instinct is there. Then they'd be fine. These are the ones that I really think if you dropped them on the island from Lost and you removed the others, I should have mentioned that. The others and that whole plot line and the weird magical elements, that's not a part of it. We're simply talking a survivable island. And I think they'd be fine. They'd honestly, I feel this is the tier that would adapt so well that when rescue arrived, they'd be nah, I'm good. I'm okay here, thank you. Next is they build the raft. These are the people where it's they're not only going to be fine on this island, they're going to be the Jack Shepherd, right? They're going to be leading the pack. These are the ones who have goals, okay? They're going to build the raft. They're going to get them off the island. Where do I want to start? I'm going to start with Pierre. Pierre survived a week. I think, frankly, Pierre loves, creature comforts is not the right, modern comforts, more accurately. I don't think Pierre is going to do well a week in when he realizes that he's never going to experience, air conditioning again. I think that would kind of make him snap and he'd lose his mind. I don't think he's making it off the island, if I'm being perfectly honest. Even with help, even if, someone from an upper tier is Pierre, I'm going to take care of you, you're going to be fine, I got you, bestie. He's going to be absolutely not. I miss my dog and my weirdly young girlfriend. This is it for me. Charles, meanwhile, I don't think Charles is making it off the plane. I'm so sorry. I do think he has that, weird trauma survival instinct. I think he does have a tough spirit. Oh god, what's the word? My mom used it to describe me one time. and it was like you could always make the best in a bad situation. I forget what it was now. An enduring spirit? I don't remember. Charles, he's been through the shit with Ferrari. Unfortunately, I think, frankly, he's not making it through the night. Like, I'm so sorry to this man. I love him, but he did not make it off the plane. Carlos Sainz, I think he'd make it with some help. I think with some assistance from another party, because like he is big, he's strong, he could be helpful in like building stuff, but I don't think he has the wherewithal, I'm gonna say, to be able to like hunt food for sport. I think he'd die in a boar attack before that was a successful experience, but I do think he'd be fine on the island. I think if someone else like brought him food and made him do manual labor in exchange for it, he'd be fine on the island. Yuki, I think he'd be fine. I do. Yuki, I feel like would miss like his freaky foods. Like that I do think he'd miss in his spirit, but as a whole, I think he'd be fine on the island. I think he'd find a way to like build his own shelters. He'd really get into fruit. I think he'd get like weirdly into like fruit salads and fishing. I think Yuki would get weirdly into fishing on the island and he'd start making all these freaky fish dishes with like what fruit is available. I think Yuki, frankly, would be perfectly fine on a deserted island. I think he'd be able to entertain himself. Fernando Alonso is building the raft. I'm so sorry. This man is a survivor, okay? This man won his last championship before Kimi Antonelli was born, and he's still in the sport. So, like, that man is a survivor. He's building the raft, right? He's making it off the island, and he's leading the charge to get them home. I do firmly believe that, as much as I dislike him. Anyway, now that the chairs are filled in, I'm just gonna bop around. Kimi Antonelli, God bless your soul, you made it a week. I do think Kimi is making it off the plane. I think he's making it through the night. And then I think he's gonna be, like, wandering in the jungle one day and he's gonna get, like, beaten by a venomous snake or something. Like, he's gonna die in an incident that, frankly, in a television show, I would find comical. Like, it would be a comedy of errors that lead to his death. But, like, he's not making it through the week. Lando Norris, meanwhile, he is not making it through the night, okay? Lando, I do think, frankly, like, he also would theoretically need someone to save him, but I think even then, like, he is a lost cause, okay? Lando, he, frankly, I think refused to wear his seatbelt on the plane, and when the plane snapped in half, he just flew out the back. Like, Lando died in the stupidest way possible, like, in the most preventable manner known to man, and yet it still happened. Like, he still died on day one. Let's do someone higher. Valtteri Bottas is absolutely building the raft. I firmly believe the, like, Viking blood that runs through his veins would kick into, like, high gear, and he'd end up building, like, a 5-room hut and have, like, a natural, like, water purification system, right? Valtteri Bottas would be fine on the island. He'd actually be, like, the most fine on the island. I think he'd live a life of luxury in compared to the other members. I think he'd be absolutely and completely building the raft. Daniel Ricciardo, I do think would be fine with some help. I think he'd need a little bit of guidance on, like, what to do, because he's like Carlos, right? He's very no thoughts, head empty in a survival sense. I know he has his insights for sure, but, like, as far as surviving on an island goes, I don't think he has the real wherewithal to really be of much use without some guidance. But again, he's big, he's strong, he could be helpful. I do also think that, like, unlike Carlos, he would, like, intentionally latch on to someone. I think he'd try and endear himself onto someone who's better at surviving, and that would be how he makes it through, right? Like, I think that's how he's gonna get to the escape boat, to the raft. He's gonna charm his way on. Max Verstappen, I frankly think he'd be fine. I think, here's my thing. If Jos Verstappen is anywhere on the island, Max has built a raft that, like, somehow has electricity, right? Like, his daddy issues would kick into high gear. Otherwise, I think he'd be fine, right? Like, I think Max Verstappen, frankly, would be like, this is actually kind of nice. No one's bothering me here. I can work with this. And then he'd just kind of vibe. He'd just kind of live his best life. I do think he'd, like, find some weird gem that he'd start selling. I think Max Verstappen would invent capitalism on the island. I can't explain why I believe that, but I do firmly hold that belief that, like, he'd find some, like, rare mineral that's, like, necessities to survive. I don't know how he'd do it. He'd be the Sawyer, kind of. He'd, like, somehow obtain goods that he would then leverage in exchange for other items, but, like, he'd be fine. Lance Stroll, we all know he did not make it off the plane. I'm so sorry. That man, I don't want to call him pampered, but I don't have a better adjective for him. I don't think he made it off the plane, guys. Like, I actually think that, like, the only reason he wouldn't have made it off the plane is because it's a private jet, and while everyone else's plane crashed, his daddy's jet is fine. So, like, he would have made it to his destination. Frankly, I think if he made it onto the island, it would not go well for him. I think he'd expect other people to, like, build his hut for him, but not in, like, the Daniel way, where, like, he'd charm his way into it, or the Carlos way, where, like, he has something to offer in his largeness and strength. I think Lance would, like, walk up to, like, Alonso and be like, build my hut for me, and he'd be like, absolutely the fuck not, and then he'd just drown him. Guys, I realized Ollie Bearman did not make it onto the tier list. His image did not upload. He survived a week. I do believe that. I think, like, he could theoretically pull a Daniel and, like, kind of charm his way on with his goofiness. Unfortunately, I think he's just too, like, skinny, kind of. Like, he's too lanky, is the better term. Like, the other two, in the maybe with some help tier, have the physical muscles to, like, offer physical help to maybe some of the less large men above them. Unfortunately, Ollie Bearman, I don't think has endeared himself in the same way to, like, any of the higher drivers as of right now. And also, I don't think he has the, like, same Daniel charm to really be able to get away with it, or, like, the Carlos charisma, I'll call it. So, Ollie Bearman, I do think he'd make it. Like, I think theoretically, like, someone would take a little bit of pity on him and, like, slip him some food on night one, but I don't think he made it much beyond that. George Russell. I actually think George Russell would be fine. I think George Russell is freakishly adaptable in a way that is not, like, understandable. I think he'd be fine. Like, I think he'd weirdly and successfully adapt to the point that, like, a month in, he doesn't even really miss his old life. Like, he's doing absolutely fine on the island. He's living his best life. You know who else I think would be fine? I think Lewis would be surprisingly fine. I think Lewis would get, like, really into the fruit as well, similar to Yuki. I think he'd get really into the fruit. The only thing that holds me back from saying Lewis would be fine is I don't think he'd have any protein available to him on the island. Actually, you know what? I'm bumping him down a tier. He'd need, like... You remember in the Hunger Games when, like, little freaky things would, like, drop gifts to you? If someone did that to him with protein, then he'd be actually fine. I think he'd be fine in terms of the, like, he can't eat whatever he wants anymore. And I do think that would be hard for other people on this list. I think the dietary change would fuck some people up. I think Lewis would be weirdly fine with that. But I don't think he'd have enough protein to actually survive now that I think about it long term. So I think he'd need some help, but I do think he'd be fine. Esteban, hear me out with Esteban. I'm putting Esteban in the top tier, and I feel like that is controversial. I do think Esteban would build the raft. Esteban is a survivalist at his core, okay? I want us to think about the Esteban Ocon timeline of Formula One, okay? He got on Force India only to get kicked off when Lance's daddy bought the team. He then worked his way back into the grid. He was supposed to be in Mercedes, which I think about often. I think about how he was supposed to actually be in Bottas' seat the year before, and then Bottas stayed for an extra year, and then Esteban got moved over to Alpine, and then he got kicked out of Alpine because he hates Pierre, and they had beef, and it was a whole thing. And then he ended up at Haas. Like, Esteban is a survivor. I do think he'd build the raft, if for no other reason than I think he'd see it as his shot into a better seat in Formula One. Alex, hear me out. Alex is fine. He's gonna make it because George is gonna take care of him. I firmly believe that. And I stand by that with my entire chest. Like, I think Alex would be, like, similar to Daniel. Like, he'd be endearing enough that everyone's going to take care of him. Because, like, Alex is the only guy on the grid that no one beefs with. I think they all like him enough that, like, the 6 people who are above him are going to be like, yeah, I'll give you some food. Yeah, I'll give you some water. Yeah, you can sleep in my tent. Oh, you need some help building your thing? I got you, my guy. So, like, I think Alex would frankly be fine in the long run as long as he has other people to help him. I don't think he's lifting a finger himself. I frankly don't know where to put Oscar. I've thought about this for, like, a good minute now, and I don't know where to put Oscar. I think he's dead center. That's what I'm going to go with. Oscar can be dead. Actually, I think Oscar would be fine. I think Oscar would, like, really enjoy island living. I do think he'd, like, need to sort of, like, get over certain elements in his brain to, like, start killing the animals and eating them for food. But once he got over that, he's fine. I think Oscar would, like, really miss taking weird pictures of steaks and tweeting them out. And I think he'd, like, relive that with some boar. Anyway, That's all I got. That's all I got in this moment in time. I hope you enjoyed this. I will keep doing these if the masses want it. Like I have so many things I could rank these drivers doing. Okay, like my mind palace is broad and it has many a wing. Like I could do Hunger Games. I could do a lot of things. And we're gonna get to them potentially at some point maybe. Until then, thank you so much for watching. Feel free to comment your thoughts down below. Let me know how you feel. You can like and subscribe if you want to or don't. I will be fine either way, and in the description I will put the other Formula One ranking I did where I said, what was it, who would model nude. I think that one was more fun, but I did have fun making this, and I will probably continue to do them. So yeah, that'll be down there. You may check it out if you so choose. And yeah, thank you again for watching. Bye!